Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive
Yeah.
into some really fascinating research.
Mm-hmm.
This time we're going to be talking about generative AI
Yes.
and organizational change.
Absolutely.
And this is based on a
Yeah.
really interesting essay
Yep.
by Kanitz
That's
and
right.
his colleagues.
Yeah.
So, have you ever wondered if AI could
Mhm.
maybe help your company plan out its next big change
Yeah.
initiative, or even write
Yeah.
a really motivational email to get everybody on board?
I think it's definitely possible.
Yeah.
And this essay really dives into that.
Yeah. So could you maybe break down for us
Right.
what generative AI actually
Yeah.
is?
So generative AI or GAI refers to these really powerful computer systems that can create new content,
Okay.
like text or images or even music.
Gotcha.
It's basically like having this superpowered assistant that can write speeches or compose music or even generate code. And it does all of this based on what it's learned from just massive amounts of data.
So it's kind of like having a creative genius
Yeah,
on call 247.
exactly.
But I'm curious, how does that actually work in practice?
Well, the secret sauce lies in something called large language models.
Okay.
And these models, they analyze like massive amounts of text and code,
Hmm.
learning all the nuances of human language.
Right.
And they can even like predict what someone might say next.
That's wild.
Yeah, so think about this in the context of change management.
Okay.
GAI can actually anticipate employee concerns
Whoa.
and help you craft responses that address them proactively.
So it's like getting ahead of the curve
Exactly.
before the pushback even starts.
Yeah, and the essay actually uses a really great example.
Okay.
They talk about this tech manufacturer
Hmm.
called Tech Corp,
All right.
and they were trying to instill these three core values:
Okay.
passion for computer chips, lifelong learning, and active listening.
Okay. Pretty standard corporate culture stuff.
Yeah, pretty typical, right?
Yeah.
But here's where the AI comes in.
Okay.
The researchers actually used ChatGPT
Uh-huh.
to breathe life into these concepts.
Interesting.
So think about catchy titles or inspirational quotes or even behavioral guidelines,
Okay.
all generated by AI.
So it's taking these kind of generic
Yeah.
values and making them a
But
little more exciting.
more engaging, yeah.
Yeah.
And they even had ChatGPT draft a whole 12-month rollout plan
Oh, wow.
for Tech Corp, complete with specific activities.
So AI could literally write my company's next motivational email
Sure, it
or
pretty well could.
even map out our whole strategy.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So the essay explores these three key areas where GAI can really make a difference:
Hmm.
planning the initiative, mobilizing stakeholders, and monitoring potential issues.
Okay.
We've touched on the planning part,
Uh-huh.
but the real power of GAI,
Hmm.
I think, lies in how it can personalize communication.
Right, because you got to get people on board
Exactly.
with the change.
You need buy-in.
So how does AI personalize communication? Is it reading everyone's minds or something?
Well, not quite mind reading, but it's getting pretty close.
Okay.
So imagine ChatGPT analyzing an employee's past emails or survey responses
Mm-hmm.
to figure out, like, are they motivated by rewards?
Okay.
Or maybe they're more driven by avoiding risks?
I see.
And then it tailors the change message accordingly.
Wow.
That's the level of personalization.
So it's really understanding
Yeah.
what makes people tick.
Exactly. And there's real science behind this too.
Okay.
Studies have shown that people respond way more positively
Makes sense.
to messages that actually align with their own personal motivations.
Yeah.
And GAI helps change managers tap into those nuances
Yeah.
and craft communications that really resonate.
Okay, so it's not just about crafting the right message.
Right.
It's also about delivering it effectively, especially during those difficult conversations.
Exactly.
You know, when you have to sit down with a resistant employee.
Yeah, the one who's like, but we've always done it this way.
Exactly.
And believe it or not, GAI can actually help with that too.
Oh, really?
We'll dive into how in part 2 of our deep dive.
Okay, so last time we were talking about how GAI can actually help leaders navigate those tough conversations around change.
Right, those tricky conversations.
Yeah, and you were saying that AI could actually help.
Yeah, the essay gives a fascinating example
Yeah, okay.
of using ChatGPT to create a simulated role-playing scenario.
Interesting.
They set it up where a hypothetical team leader has to convince this skeptical engineer
Uh-huh.
about the value of this whole culture change thing.
So it's AI is stepping in as a mediator.
It's more like giving leaders a chance to practice.
Okay, got it.
The researchers actually created this back-and-forth dialogue
Uh-huh.
between the team leader, Emily, and this resistant engineer, Mike.
Okay.
Emily's explaining the reasons for the change,
Yeah.
and Mike's pushing back with all the usual doubts and objections.
That's really clever.
It gives leaders a safe space to test out different approaches, refine their messaging.
Like a dress rehearsal.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's like having an AI-powered change management coach.
It really is.
Wow.
And this type of training can be incredibly valuable.
Especially for leaders who maybe aren't so comfortable.
Yeah, who might be a little apprehensive about implementing the change.
Yeah. Okay, so we've talked about planning and communication.
Right.
But what about the follow-through? Like,
Yeah.
how do we know if this change initiative is actually working?
That's where monitoring comes in.
Okay.
And GAI offers some really powerful tools for this, too.
Okay.
Think about all those employee surveys and feedback forms.
Oh, yeah.
Often that data just sits there.
Just gathering dust?
Well, GAI can help make sense of it all.
Oh.
The essay describes how they used ChatGPT to analyze real employee responses
Uh-huh.
to TechCorp's culture change initiative.
Interesting.
It could identify key themes
Okay.
and even figure out like the overall sentiment.
So is it like positive or negative?
Exactly.
So instead of spending weeks poring over spreadsheets,
Yeah, it's a huge time saver.
change managers can get instant insights.
And it frees them up to focus on the bigger picture.
So it's not just a creative writer, it's also a powerful analytical tool.
It can be both.
I'm starting to see the possibilities here.
The possibilities are vast.
But the essay doesn't stop there, right?
No, it goes even further.
Yeah.
They also explored how ChatGPT can help develop metrics
Uh-huh.
for tracking the progress of a change initiative.
Because what good is a change initiative if you can't measure it?
Exactly. You need to know if it's actually working.
Right. So how does AI help with that?
It helps you identify the right performance indicators.
Okay.
For TechCorps, ChatGPT suggested things like tracking employee engagement
Okay.
in chip-related projects or participation in training programs.
So things that are tied to those core values.
It's about connecting those big picture goals
right.
to concrete measurable actions.
Okay. That makes sense.
It's about moving beyond vague aspirations
Yeah.
and turning them into concrete behaviors and outcomes.
Okay. All this talk about AI's potential is really exciting.
It is exciting.
But, it's important to acknowledge that it's not a perfect solution.
You're absolutely right.
There are some limitations.
Yeah, the essay mentions a few key ones.
Like what?
One of the big ones is that the suggestions from these AI tools can sometimes be a little generic.
Okay.
They need human expertise to really tailor them to a specific company.
So it's like having a really brilliant but inexperienced assistant.
That's a great way to put it.
They need some guidance.
Yeah, they need direction from someone who gets the nuances.
Okay. And what else?
Another concern is the lack of transparency.
Okay.
Like these AI systems don't cite their sources.
Oh, that's interesting.
So it can be tough to know where the information is coming from.
Right. And if you're going to base decisions on these insights,
Exactly.
you need to know if they're reliable.
And it's not just about trusting the information. It's about understanding the potential downsides.
Okay.
The essay stresses the importance of responsible use and human oversight.
So we can't just hand over the reins completely.
We need to find that balance
Right.
between leveraging AI and maintaining human judgment.
So it sounds like the future of change management is going
Yeah.
to be this interesting mix
It's going to be fascinating.
of human and artificial intelligence.
It really will be.
And that raises some big questions about what skills will be most valuable
It does.
in this new landscape.
Absolutely.
That's a perfect segue into the final part of our deep dive.
Okay, great.
We'll explore what this means for you, the listener,
Yeah.
and what skills you might need to thrive.
In this AI-powered world.
Exactly. So we've spent a lot of time in this deep dive
Yeah.
talking about generative AI and how it's going to totally change organizational change.
Reshape it, yeah.
But I bet some of you are thinking,
Yeah.
okay, but what does this actually mean for me?
That's the big question, right?
Yeah.
We've talked about how GAI can help with all these different aspects of change.
Yeah. Planning, communication, monitoring, measuring.
All of that.
But it's not about replacing humans, right?
No, definitely not.
It's more about
It's about augmenting our capabilities.
yeah, making us better.
Making change more effective.
Yeah. And maybe even more human.
More humane, yeah.
Because change is really about people.
Absolutely.
And the essay really emphasizes that.
it does.
So we can't forget the human element.
Right, especially in change management.
So it makes me wonder
Yeah.
what skills are going to be most valuable
Hmm.
for change managers in the future?
That's a great question.
Like if AI can do all the data analysis,
Yeah, and the content creation.
what does that leave for us?
Right. What's left for the humans?
Yeah.
I think it really highlights the importance of things like
Okay.
critical thinking,
Mm-hmm.
emotional intelligence,
Mm-hmm.
and the ability to really interpret and understand those AI insights.
So maybe change managers will be less about like execution.
Less about the day-to-day,
Yeah, and more about strategy and vision.
more about the big picture.
And ethical considerations too, right?
Absolutely, that's key.
Because AI can't make those judgments.
No, not yet.
So it's like the role shifts from project manager
Yeah,
to change leader.
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, someone who can guide their teams through all this.
Yeah, through all this complexity.
Yeah, with AI as a tool.
Right, AI is a partner.
Yeah, and I think it'll be crucial for change managers
Yeah,
to really be able to work effectively with these AI tools.
absolutely.
It's not just about understanding the technology.
No, it's more than that.
It's about knowing how to use it.
Right, knowing how to ask the right questions.
Yeah, and interpret the results.
And then translate those into action.
It's about that synergy
Okay.
between human and artificial intelligence.
Working together.
Yeah, and the essay leaves us with this final thought
Okay.
that's kind of unsettling.
A little bit, yeah.
They suggest that as GAI gets more sophisticated,
Uh-huh.
it could actually lead to more change initiatives.
More change.
Yeah, more change.
That's interesting.
Because on one hand, AI could make change easier.
Right, less daunting.
So more companies might embrace it.
Yeah.
But on the other hand,
We have to be careful about change fatigue.
yeah, you don't want people to burn out.
Exactly.
Change should always have a purpose.
It should be meaningful,
Yeah, driven by a need.
not just change for the sake of change.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
I think the key takeaway is this.
Uh,
GAI has the potential
Ah.
to revolutionize how we approach change.
It really does.
But it's a tool.
Powerful tool.
And like any tool,
Right.
it needs to be used responsibly
Right.
with a human-centered perspective.
Absolutely.
We've only just scratched the surface of this topic.
Yeah. There's so much more to explore.
And I think AI is going to keep evolving.
It definitely will.
So keep learning, keep asking questions,
Stay curious
and keep diving deep.
into the world of AI.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.